All right, welcome back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in wherever and however you are watching us today. My name is Caleb Talley. I am joined by my co-hosts, Jeff Amerine and Grace Gill. How's it going?
Glad to be here.
Yep, going well.
And we are glad to be joined by a friend of Startup Junkies and a visitor or a native to Northwest Arkansas, but also visiting from Wichita, Kansas, Quinn Robertson of NXTUS. How's it going?
Going really well. Thanks for having me in.
Absolutely. Quinn was going to stop by for some beers and catching up, and we turned that into a podcast, and so here we are.
Two birds, one stone. That's how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Quinn, give us a little kind of like your background, your genesis, how you got into the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and then for those who are unfamiliar with NXTUS, what that's all about.
Yeah. So I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, went through the U of A accounting program, master's CPA, got into the real world, realized I didn't want to do any accounting or anything like that. So it just took a master's degree to get there, but it is what it is. I went out to Wichita and worked at Koch Industries, doing some early stage corporate venture capital work there as they were sort of forming a lot of that together. And so did that, did a couple of other tech, digital transformation, buzzword of the day stuff, which was a lot of fun. Realized I wanted to get out and be a little bit more hands-on, roll my sleeves up specifically with entrepreneurs. And so a startup junkie or a type of entity in Wichita was getting kind of reformed, reborn. And they said they needed some help building some muscles around the capital related stuff. And I said, well, sounds like a lot of fun. So that was sort of my entryway into startup community stuff. So the entity itself, NXTUS, has been around since I think 2014 or 2015. But basically, trying to help build entrepreneurs and companies of significance, not only in Wichita, but Kansas and the Heartland. And so we really say that we're going to try to help entrepreneurs get access to customers, capital, and connections. So the little 3 C's, the moniker that we can walk around with. And so programming built up in all of those, and it's been a lot of fun for the last, I think I'm just over 3 years in right now. So it's been a lot of fun.
Now, Quinn, you're definitely a fellow traveler, and you're also in what we would characterize as an unexpected place for there to be a venture ecosystem. Yeah. And we wrote a book about that a while ago as to how you can really change things by pushing this movement in places people typically don't associate with early stage venture. Yeah. So talk about the Wichita scene a little bit. What's happening there? What's cool? What will be differentiators for Wichita versus other places?
Yeah. Wichita's been through, we had early days, 20, 30 years ago with the Pizza Huts of the world, the Rent-A-Centers of the world, Freddy's, all of those kind of early entrepreneurial stuff, even Koch Industries in and of itself, similar to kind of the Walmart play or the Walmart story here, really pushed Wichita. And so we've really looked at Wichita over the last 3 or 4 years. I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, not much of an angel capital community, a couple of nonprofits really doing some amazing work, but just not as many of them as there really should be. And so we've spent the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, really focusing in on finding our entrepreneurs because they're there. Wichita is the aviation capital of the world. There's engineers running around somewhere tinkering with stuff and doing some awesome, amazing things. And so we spent a lot of time trying to find the ones that are already there and then really build the top end of the funnel right now. And so that's idea, early stage, early revenue. And that's where I think we've spent quite a bit of time is to try to focus in on those areas because you got to kind of build from the foundation and build the pipeline to continue to push a lot of those through. And so we don't really have, I think, a full identity yet. We're still such a young ecosystem, right. But I fully expect in, the next 5 to 10 years to see a lot of IoT, heavy industry, ag tech, animal health. I fully expect a lot more of that to continue to go as well. And we're seeing some of the starting points of that, but there's going to be a lot more, and I'm really excited about where the future looks for us.
Do you see there being some building around advanced mobility and aviation related stuff, given that there's this 100-year legacy of that in Wichita?
Yeah. There's quite a bit of that. There's not specifically in Wichita, but other areas of Kansas. There's a lot of drone related activity. I think it's up at Kansas State, and so there's a lot of those things that are starting to bubble up. There's a lot of things going on at Wichita State specifically. And so we're trying to figure out and put all the pieces together. How do we turn those into hyper scalable, amazingly economic development impact companies based on this amazing technology that's sort of getting built out around here.
And we were really glad to get Ricky Council from Wichita State.
Yeah,
You know,
hey,
and
that may be a
that.
sore point.
Appreciate that.
But he's,
I'm
he's
okay
a high
with that
point
as well.
on the team this year for sure.
I'm okay with that. I've got a lot of friends of mine that are really unhappy about that.
I bet.
I get to play both sides of that. I get to be happy about that
Yeah, I
too.
bet.
So
Yeah, he's kind of a highlight reel sometimes. So, given that you are from Northwest Arkansas and you are just so plugged in, obviously, into the Wichita scene, where do you see some general overlaps of kind of like where the two ecosystems are alike and obviously different, but just kind of what you see comparatively?
yeah, I think as I see Northwest Arkansas, I mean, you can see just the retail hub, the supply chain hub that exists here. I mean, the number of startups that I run into here in Northwest Arkansas that are retail, ad tech, e-commerce. I mean, there's just plenty of them around here that I think that's, you've sort of got maybe some more heavy industry B2B style ones that I see over in Wichita, a little bit more consumer focus here in a lot of the companies that I run into. So there's, I think, different verticals, which I think frankly are complementary. How do you build stuff? How do you make it? And how do you get it to the right people? I mean, there's a natural overlap that exists there. I think both of our ecosystems, as well as we continue to just press forward with money flowing in from federal government, state government, from family or philanthropic areas as well. We're going to continue to see, I think, it's not just Wichita, it's Wichita, Kansas City, Tulsa, Northwest Arkansas, Oak City. I think there's this little cluster here in the Heartland that I think we're going to all grow together, which to me is going to be very interesting to continue to follow. And it's not a 1 year or 2 year game. That's a 5 and a 10 year, 20 year play that I'm really excited to see. I think the region as a whole continue to push forward with that.
Are you getting people there that are vacating the chaos and the cost of the coast, that are coming to Wichita, lower cost of living, nicer quality of life, lower crime, all that sort of stuff?
Anecdotally, I'm hearing some. I don't think it's nearly as much as I think I've probably seen in I know you all have a kind of a remote program for Northwest Arkansas as well as Tulsa. And so I've not seen as much of an influx, but anecdotally, I'm certainly seeing it. I think recently Wichita was on a national publication of like best cost of living in the country or something like that. So the expectation is it's certainly going to be there, and I'm anecdotally seeing quite a bit of it. I think or similar to you all, I'd love to continue to see more. More tech folks, more tech related sales, just all of that type of stuff, but just general entrepreneurship. And it's a fun trend to continue to follow over the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
It does make sense. I mean, you think about just kind of these pockets of communities that are really not that far apart. So that it makes a whole lot of sense that we would kind of create this kind of cluster and this general shared ecosystem of growth and innovation. So there's a lot of opportunity there, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I love the overlap, and I've also started to see, granted, I've only been in the community for, let's call it 3 years now. Jeff, you 3 or 4 years, maybe a little bit longer, that you've been in the startup ecosystem. Only like 4 or 5, something like that.
Yeah,
Not
we've been at it for 15 years.
No, it's not it. It's only a little bit.
So it's like primordial days. In fact, I probably could have claimed co-assigned patent rights on the wheel. So no, it's been a long time.
Yeah. But even for the little bit that I've been in here, I started to see people talk about this region as a place to be, a place to grow a family, and a place to see entrepreneurship and tech entrepreneurship continue to grow. I've seen bridges getting built from Wichita, Kansas City, Northwest Arkansas, and Tulsa, and you guys are certainly recipients of a lot of that. And I'm excited to continue to see just the region as a whole continue to grow.
And the Heartland kicks ass, really.
Amen.
I mean, there's a work ethic, and there's a quality of life, and there's a cost of living, and things are just easier than what you would face on either coast.
Yeah.
If you're trying to start something.
Totally agree.
Really is.
And I saw a video, I guess you got a video or a meme, but it was the clip of Jack Sparrow on the top of a sail of the ship as the ship's sinking. And it said people from California, and then the ship was California, and then he stepped off to the next ship, and that next ship was Texas.
Oh,
and so I see that kind of, once kind of that dynamic changed the landscape of Austin and that and the dynamic. I think you see those people kind of disperse out to not the people from California, but the people that are making, innovating, and want to reclaim a bit of that what they had before in a different ecosystem.
Yeah,
might also sprinkle out into.
I'm curious from you guys' perspective as, real, living here locals right now. I've heard of people, they're going to the Miamis and the Austins of the world, and then they're sort of dispersing out, similar to what you said. But, I view Northwest Arkansas as sort of this hidden gem. And, the question becomes, do you want it to stay hidden for a while, or do you really want it to start to blow up like that? I'm curious on y'all's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a perspective, and it won't make people happy in the locations I'm about to talk about, but
edit starting here.
20 plus years ago, Austin really was kind of Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas. Like I went down there and interviewed when I was living on the East Coast, and I thought, cool place, college town, not that big, great tech, good place to eat, good outdoor stuff. Now it's freaking LA. I mean, it's got all the things associated with LA, the congestion, the crime, all of the social issues, etc. It's just another big metropolis. So I hope that we're marching down a path to where this collection of little cities in this area can be something different, better thought out, more accessible, not as congested. But you never know. I mean, we've got, 37 people a day or some ridiculous number of people a day are moving here from elsewhere.
Wow.
So I'm not one of those people that says that I'm in favor of change or in favor of progress as long as nothing changes, right? I know that things are going to change, but I just hope we're a little more thoughtful about how we do it.
Got it.
Because I wouldn't put Miami or Austin on my top list of places I want to be. It's just another big city now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so often kind of thrown around like Fayetteville or Northwest Arkansas, the next Austin, and I always try to combat that with like, I don't want to be the next Austin. I want to be the first Fayetteville, the first Bentonville, the first Northwest Arkansas, and kind of like, tread in our own path that makes the most sense for us regionally, as opposed to just supplementing our population, our talent with people from these other places who want it to be the place they left. It's like they're not leaving those places because it was so great. And so, there's that connotation that they're bringing the problems from those places with them, potentially. So just kind of navigating that, to Jeff's point, just kind of navigating that, and it's in our own way.
Keep up to date on the latest news in economic development with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission's Arkansas Inc. newsletter. Each month, get the Arkansas Inc. newsletter, which spotlights the latest project wins and developments throughout the state, delivered to your email. The newsletter features major project announcements, company expansions and relocations, news articles, rankings, and more that highlight why Arkansas is a great state to do business. The newsletter is a snapshot of what AEDC has been working on and what we are following. The quarterly Tech Trends newsletter highlights the latest news in Arkansas's growing tech sector. You can learn about new Arkansas tech companies, computer science and cybersecurity initiatives, funding and venture capital announcements, and even more. AEDC offers 4 quarterly newsletters: the Food and Beverage Industry Digest, Aerospace and Defense Beacon, Timber Trends, and Tech Trends. To learn more or sign up for a newsletter, visit arkansasedc.com/news.
I guess we can go kind of back onto NXTUS and what you're doing in Wichita. I mean, as you mentioned, and being a native to Wichita myself, like that business spirit, the entrepreneurial spirit really is alive in Wichita.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there are some big enterprise players between, Coke and Textron. So where do you feel that NXTUS is kind of fitting in to kind of help the growth of the ecosystem?
Yeah, the way that we sort of built, we didn't want to be everything to everyone. I think if you try to boil the ocean, then you end up being, nothing to nobody is the way that I think about that. And we really looked at, folks that are building kind of the Boulder thesis, and then you've got the rise of the rest, and from a revolution perspective, and you take some of the seeds that look like there, and it's like this diagram that's the founder in the middle, and then you've got these pillars around the outside, right? It's capital, it's local economy and corporates, it's talent, it's all of that. And so the way that we sort of built out and figured out how do we play in this world is, okay, NXTUS is going to be very focused on how do we enable access to capital for the entrepreneurs here? So that when we're really focused on capital mobilization. We are really our original nonprofit had a co-working space, so there's like this space related to it. We said there are other people that are doing this far better than we are, that let them do that and own that and make it amazing in Wichita. And so capital, one area you mentioned, Textron and Coke and those other ones. Our customer focus is, how do we get the big corporates here to really speak startup, and not even the big corporates, but even the mid-sized players. There's a lot of mid-size companies that are ready and ripe for disruption. How do we enable that connection there? And so we've got programming related to a lot of that. So for us, we try to be sort of a connector more so than anything. Even if we're not everything to everybody, we want to be one arm's length away from everything, so we can connect folks to the right people on that front, own our lane, but then also let other folks do the great work that they're better suited than us to be able to do so.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And like something that, to your point about kind of, understanding where you play and where, some others do certain things better, like the not duplicating on the co-working space. That's an area that we've kind of, when I started Startup Junkie, it'll be 4 years in May, count the ESOs and the people working, the organizations working in this space on one hand. Yep. And now in the last 4 years, that's tripled probably. You've got all these different organizations, and they kind of have these niche kind of focus. A lot of them do. And so a big piece of that for us is kind of trying to identify, how do we collaborate with those individuals to maximize what we do while also maximizing the value that they can have for our entrepreneurial base and client base, and not duplicating those services and not getting in the way of ourselves by trying to be everything to all people, because it doesn't make sense for us to be. We can be the top of the funnel and distribute them when necessary to that niche organization that can do X, Y, Z. So it makes a lot of sense. Just kind of reiterating. Yeah,
and a well-connected community can really make 1 + 1 = 3, and that's one of the things that we try to live by as well. Is it's events, it's services, it's resources. Can you take the best of different folks that are focused in certain areas and make it a more prominent, better outcome by just mashing these two things together versus two people rowing their own boats on that? And so I think a well-organized, a well-connected community is it's an awesome add to any local ecosystem or anything like that. And there's naturally going to be sometimes people sort of step on each other's toes by accident. We're all headed toward the same outcome and the same vision of what we want to see. And so there's sometimes stepping on each other's toes means that there's work being rowed in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, and we've seen some with over the years. I'm not going to name names, obviously, but organizations that have come in without the best intention, I guess, or not necessarily without good intention, but coming in from outside the region with their own perspective of what they expect or think of this region, and come into this region like bringing Bibles to the savages almost, and almost never, there's a lot of toe stepping on, but it's not necessarily rowing in the right direction. It's just people not coming in to observe and to with a willingness to collaborate. So that's kind of a key feature that we pride ourselves in, is our willingness and eagerness to collaborate with the folks that are doing similar work, even with the corporates, coming from a perspective of, for example, the fuel accelerator that we facilitate. That plays a big role in our ability to work with the corporates in just teeing up engagements with, startup solutions that they might need, and building those bridges within those enterprises to help, solve problems for them. And in turn, hopefully get pilots or some business going for somebody that we're working with from a startup perspective. So
yeah, and it was we were also thinking regionally as well, and I'll shamelessly admit that I may have looked at you all's fuel cohorts for some of our programming. That you guys do a great job of putting together an amazing program that gets a chance to add value for some of those entrepreneurs, but then also the folks come out better on the other side, and we'll sometimes happily take the better versions of them and see if we can help add value to them in different ways and new and unique ways that maybe we've got connections to or otherwise. So kudos to you all on that one. We appreciate it as well, and hope to continue to go both directions.
Yeah,
as we
no,
move
that's
forward.
fantastic.
So,
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, on that collaboration, like, we talk about kind of the Heartland and how these different hubs are starting to grow. And obviously there's great collaboration between those, but in each of these areas, kind of the ecosystem are at different places. So where are the weaknesses between, trying to collaborate in Tulsa and Wichita and Kansas City and Northwest Arkansas? I heard there's some stuff going on in like Columbia, some of these other places. Where are those weaknesses that we need to start thinking about as kind of an ecosystem on a regional level that to kind of facilitate more collaboration?
That's a great point. I think one of the things that we're looking at right now, and I think Northwest Arkansas has done a similar proposal, the National Science Foundation, the NSF Regional Engines Program as well. I'm interested to see how that. What comes of that. I know that there are different applications and all of that are coming through, and I hope to see whatever the end result of a lot of that it's not just, if it ends up being a Tulsa, a Northwest Arkansas, a Wichita, that those threads and those tentacles, for not a negative connotation, get out much farther there. I think when I think about, weaknesses, it's a great question of, I don't think it's necessarily an our region focus. I think it's, how do we continue to provide valuable feedback to founders that isn't, I think maybe Midwest nice. And I consider Northwest Arkansas like, a sliver in the little Midwest over there.
We get that Midwest and a little Southern nice.
Yeah. We'll tack that on there as a little add-in. But no, I think it's, in some areas, and this is something I try to do with everybody that I talk to, is, don't, every time someone wants to devote their life, their savings, their blood, sweat, and tears for the next few years to many years of their life, providing quality feedback that's not just, a nice pat on the back, because sometimes you're doing more harm than good in that scenario. And so, that's maybe not like an overly technical answer, but I think we in general, whether it's us or more north, are probably in this area as well. Sometimes it's providing good levels of critical feedback to folks to really, and we all have their best interest at heart with that, as opposed to just sort of letting folks go along for a little while. So yeah, that's maybe an answer on that side.
Yeah, one thing we like to do, we send out folks that are in the idea stage rather than being the ones that give them the too harsh or critical feedback. We send them out to do their homework and send them out to talk to 100 strangers about what they're working on. Let them
Find
have
the
those
answer.
conversations.
Yeah.
Guide them how to talk to humans a little bit.
Yeah.
So what's next? What do y'all have on the agenda? What's on the horizon?
We've got a few programs that we launched in 2022 that were very Wichita focused. Find your customer, better serve your customer, better identify who your ideal customer profile is. Expanding that out across the state of Kansas this year. We've got some folks on our team that are doing amazing work related to that. Continuing to build up our other customer related programming to not just be, the partners that we've been working with in Wichita and across the state, but maybe it's more partners in Kansas, maybe it's in Kansas City, maybe it's in Nebraska, maybe Northwest Arkansas. So we'll see if there's an appetite or something like that there. I'm certainly looking for trying to build a bigger and stronger angel network, not just in Wichita, but across the state of Kansas and further if it makes sense. And so we really took a big step forward in 2022 of more entrepreneurs that we're able to serve, being able to serve them in different ways as well, and really trying to continue to push that ball forward and do kind of a 2.0 version of that. So we really took 2022 as sort of a pilot proof of concept in some of those things. And so we're in that stage ourselves of pivot or persevere, and many of them persevering, which has been, which is a great level of market feedback for us. So
Which piece of that keeps you up at night?
That's a great question.
I just came up with it.
Yeah. Maybe the better question is what doesn't keep me up at night.
That's fair. That's one I relate to.
No, when I think of the last 2 years, money was very freely available. There was a world that was living in sort of this abundance mindset. And I think if you were launching a company or getting real market feedback for a company in last year or 2 years ago, I think some of the learnings that you may have gotten just may not be real over the next 12 or 24 months. And none of us has a crystal ball. We're all going to figure this out as we go. But I think my biggest worry is, there will be learnings that will be viewed as, written in stone versus written in sand and continue to be morphed over the next couple of years. And so I hope folks continue to adapt and learn about their customer base, about their market over the next few years. Because I think you could get either over your skis, moving in the wrong direction, or running up against a brick wall if you don't kind of shift and pivot appropriately.
So we'll be taking Dogecoin profits to start a business.
Yeah, you can take all very small amount of my Dogecoin profits out of that, or lack thereof, I suppose. Yeah.
I had another question, but so
Is it my turn then?
While I recollect that.
Okay. I guess, you mentioned earlier about like Wichita State and Kansas State, and I know we've talked previously too about kind of the university scene. So how is NXTUS kind of bringing in this next generation, trying to cultivate entrepreneurship before or earlier than, post-graduating and everything?
Yeah, it's back to that right lane mentality and where you want to spend a lot of your time. I think so Wichita State has got some amazing kind of early entrepreneurial poke holes in an idea stage level of programming that exists there, and we certainly come in, assist where we can. I think there's a level of where do we spend all of our time in later stages in the funnel and sort of let that be their lane. We're continuing to try to find ways where 1 + 1 = 3. There's a university venture crossroads program that's helping to build up kind of a newer venture capitalist group for finance students. It started off at Kansas, and they've added it on to Wichita State. So how do we help build a newer pipeline of not only tomorrow's venture investors that are students right now and interns or analyst associates at some point in the near future, but if folks can go through that program and be better entrepreneurs on the other side because they've sat on the other side of the table, right? How do we get them there? So there's a little bit of continually morphing and finding small injection points where we can add value, but also where we can just stand back and be incredibly supportive of the work that's going on there as well. So it's continually and constantly changing, I think. Yeah.
And you came into the ecosystem from an accounting background.
Yeah.
Did you have any dabbling in entrepreneurship before?
No, I walked out of college really with this corporate America is a great, that's the place for me. And my parents
You need that structure.
Yeah. But they allowed us to have an amazing life growing up by walking down that path. My dad worked at Walmart for quite some time, and so there's certainly that sort of was the starting point in my head. And so no, I didn't have that mindset walking out of college, and it took me coming in and seeing and being immersed in it for me to really realize that this is something I really wanted to be dedicating my time, my money, my effort into. And it's also funny as well, now since I've left Northwest Arkansas and gotten away from the parents and all of that, my parents are amazing entrepreneurs in their own right and have bought a couple of businesses and all of that. And so it's I didn't know I had it in my blood, but apparently it might be there as well. But no, it's been fun to continue to find that. And I'm I look at myself in the next 5-10 years of I want to stay connected to startup community, venture, high growth, all of that. But maybe it's start a business, maybe it's buy a business. I don't know yet. I'm building in some optionality right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, similarly, I have my background in journalism, so I left school thinking I'm going to be a reporter.
There you go.
So I was not versed in entrepreneurship. I had to learn the lingo. Coming into the ecosystem, and the reason I asked is because of my follow-up question, and you kind of teed me up for it there. Jeff has a class, a small business development class that I audited when I first started at Startup Junkie, just to get a feel for entrepreneurship. And part of that class was you were required to, first week, create a business. He gave you an investment, you create a business. If you were put in that position right now, what would be your business idea?
Oh, no, you are going to put me on the spot with that. You are going to put me on the spot. If I was creating a business today, I don't have a great option for you right now. I view myself as sort of and this is maybe the CPA, accountant, risk-averse side of me that comes out. But I think the 0 to 1 is maybe not my strong suit. I'd like to take, I want to go 1 to 100. Okay. And so for me, I look at it as more themes. I want to be in a business that is a well understood problem. I want to be in a place that is you're not having to craft your own world and craft your own market and run up against brick walls the whole time. I don't know. I don't have a phenomenal answer for you on that. I'll get back to you on that. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
On the follow-up episode.
Yeah, that'll be it. That'll be it. Bring the whiskey, bring the beer. I'll be back for sure.
Absolutely.
So.
I guess it's my turn again.
Yeah.
Well, look at you. That means ask a question.
Can I ask you guys some questions?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Two-way conversation.
As y'all are looking at, Northwest Arkansas, where do you see some of the big growth levers? Where do you see the gaps, the opportunities that have a chance to be really filled in over the next, maybe not months, but next few years or so? Where do you feel like, folks should be really spending time and doubling down on?
I guess I'm getting the answer to this, so hopefully this is right. But I would say that similarly, we're looking at a lot of new capital into the area. We talked about that before. And then just from my own experience as someone who came into Northwest Arkansas, and I came into school looking for going to do international business. Similar, I thought I wanted to do the corporate route, but realized kind of that there really is a strong ecosystem here for startup, and kind of fell into that world. And now that's being reflected in kind of the university, and there's been a lot of development in kind of the university scene of teaching students how to be entrepreneurial, even if it's not, be your own small business owner, how to think that way and how to think innovatively. And so I think that's a big step, and that'll affect the area in the next few years as students start coming out of the Walton College, not just with a corporate knowledge, but also this new kind of entrepreneurial degree, this new entrepreneurial thought. So I think that's coming up, and I'd be curious, just for me, as I'm seeing my peers come out of that, to see what happens when kind of some of people my age are starting to come out into the workforce. So that's my answer for it, but you probably know better too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, just as far as like the investment in curriculum and resources for entrepreneurial programming at the university is, it's ramped up recently. It's awesome. I think we'll see a lot of, there's a focus now, of course, and it's all ties back to benefactor dollars and kind of, and the benefactors, what they're currently interested in. And of course that over the years was mountain biking, that sort of thing. You see a ramping up around outdoor recreation that's going to continue to increase. I think that'll only compound on itself, that and aviation. And there's just a general interest in private aviation and aviation technology, but also healthcare. I think that there has been kind of an audit of this ecosystem of the region and kind of a step back and an assessment that Northwest Arkansas kind of needs a healthcare infrastructure, and then there has been a lot of money and work being put in to lay a foundation to kind of create a new regional center around healthcare. So actually, I don't know if this is public knowledge yet or not, but so edit it out if it's not. But we will actually have a second field cohort this year, and it will be around healthcare technology.
Very cool.
And I know the Waltons through Alice's, with her march towards kind of creating a medical school and the Whole Health Institute, and I know a lot of the vision behind that is. Fast forward however many years that people will think, you think about going to, Minnesota to go to the Mayo Clinic. Mm-hmm. Well, fast forward how many years people think about going to Northwest Arkansas, because you've been diagnosed with something. It's like, okay, we got to go to Northwest Arkansas to figure this out. Mm-hmm. Just like you would, think about going to Minnesota for Mayo Clinic. So I think or the Cleveland Clinic or anything like that. So I think creating kind of an atmosphere, seeding some innovation around healthcare, I think is going to be on the next frontier, so to speak.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. We've sort of looked at it as this, Wichita as an example, strong aviation presence. And so when we look at what does the tomorrow look like, you have to utilize the assets that have been built here. And that's a phenomenal foundation, but that doesn't have to be exactly the tomorrow. How do you look at sort of the one level away? So Wichita aviation, why isn't Wichita the drone capital of the world? Mm-hmm. Like there is no reason why we shouldn't.
Ring look like?
Right, yeah. That's exactly it. And so you look at Northwest Arkansas, and you've seen a strong outdoor recreation presence here. I was actually talking with an entrepreneur earlier today who making feminine products, but that were compostable and organic and all of that. But a prominent customer base of hers is potentially those outdoor recreation individuals. So it's even if outdoor recreation is the area, you even within those have sort of the outer ring that you can continue to build upon as well. That's exactly it. So yeah. I love seeing all of that, and I love that. To me is when back to 1 + 1 = 3 at that point, because all of these things sort of just turn into melding together, which is really cool.
And it's Grace's point too, and about kind of the university's focus on having students leave the university not with just like, okay, let's go corporate, like this built in the back of their mind, this entrepreneurial mindset, when they launch out into the region, and it creates an opportunity. There's this landscape for them to play in entrepreneurship, but then also having that kind of desire and that background microchip kind of implanted in the back of their brain for that leaving that academic environment. That, I would have never thought that when I left school. It was not even close to my mind.
No. And I love your point, the way that you expressed it, which was it's an entrepreneurship mindset, right? It's not just, you don't have to be an entrepreneur starting your own business, et cetera, to have that mindset, to have that level of thinking. And to me, I love the fact that that can get infused into really anything you walk out with.
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to say, because even going in, the people who do still choose to go into corporate, they're starting to, you're getting this mindset that now you have intrapreneurship or, where, there's new stuff coming out of even the corporations that might have not come out otherwise. So,
I'm having an appreciation, being within a corporate and having an appreciation for innovation outside of just like this is the way we've always done it mentality, behavior.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So Quinn, our land the plane question that we typically have, unless you have any more questions for us, put us in the hot seat.
Not for right now. I set you guys up with one. I'll leave it at that, I think.
We ask our entrepreneurial guests, if they had the opportunity to go back in time. So we'll ask you give you that same prompt. If you had the opportunity to go back in time, whether that's back to when you graduated or even back before you even chose your major going into the university, if you could go back into time and give your younger self advice, what might that advice be? Given everything that you know now, all your accumulated knowledge, what nugget of advice would you give young Quinn?
I would say take more calculated risks. I think I probably walked into university and maybe even out of university with probably a lower risk profile than I probably do now. And I think the more that I have gone through just even my career in general, but especially the last few years, really embedded into the entrepreneurial community, there are ways that you can go and whatever the happiness metric you want to have is, whether it's, financial freedom or more time with family or financial success or whatever those may be. There's a level of calculated risk that comes along with that and can be done so without getting, shirt off your back type of risk scenario. So I think if I was coming out and doing more of that, I think that's probably the advice that I would give. And lastly is also define your own level of happiness, and try to strive towards that. I've got a friend of mine that I work with as well in a couple of different areas back in Wichita. And he's probably comfortable with me saying this. He was in a certain trade for a little while, and then started up an Amazon business that is selling something on there and doing amazing work with it. And now, he gets to spend, he gets to golf multiple days a week, and he built up an amazingly profitable business that for him, success was, get a chance to go and golf, but also time with his family, time with his kids, having the freedom to go and do a lot of that. So as I talk to not only myself, but to entrepreneurs in general, I tell them, what's your level of success? What is your happiness metric that you're trying to go towards? Because some people, they want to go ring the bell at the NASDAQ and IPO. There's some people that, want to go define what that is for you. And as long as you've got a clear understanding of what that is and can drive towards it, then I think you can start to align things really well and start to, back to make 1 + 1 = 3 there. So if I was telling myself that, it would be also figure out what your happiness metric is that you want to drive towards and start to go through that sooner.
You think young Quinn would have taken your advice?
Not a chance. Are you kidding me? I'm stubborn. So I'd love to say yes, but not a chance.
Well, where can our listeners learn more or connect with you, connect with NXTUS, if they want to learn more about what you're doing over there and kind of what's going on in that ecosystem, or just they're passing through Wichita, want to come buy you a beer, how would they best connect with you and the organization? Yeah,
the last one, buy me a beer. For anybody that's listening, you're more than welcome to do that. NXTUS.io is our website. If you need to reach out to me, Quinn at NXTUS.io. If you find me on LinkedIn, Quinn Robertson. I don't know what my actual link is or anything like that, but
/126.
It's something like that. But yeah, if you see a goofy looking guy with not a beard, because I had it was much more clean shaven pre-pandemic. But if you find the goofy looking guy with Quinn Robertson, it's probably me. So
we'll drop that in the show notes too.
Please do that.
Make it easier for them.
Please do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Quinn, thanks for being willing to hop on to an impromptu recording of the Startup Junkies podcast.
Yeah, this was so much fun. So much fun. Thank you guys for having me out. It's a cool spot.
Absolutely.
Ecosystem builders, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, mayors. If you're interested in taking your economic future into your own hands, we've got a book that can help you. Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places is the guide. It's a little bit inspiration. It's a little bit toolkit. What it will allow you to do is take your economic future into your own hands and build a sustainable small business, innovation, and entrepreneurial ecosystem in your backyard. If you'd like to hear more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.